Hey, this is Jay.
And this is Chelsea.
Welcome to the Shifting Perceptions podcast.
We are bringing you inspiration to live a more creative lifestyle because our favorite people are the ones that choose the path less traveled. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 33 of the Shifting Perceptions podcast. This is Chelsea. We have something really special for you this week. We got to bring on a personal friend and Jersey Shore local, Karen Rinaldi. Not only is she the publisher of Harper imprint in New York City, but she is a successful author with another book that just hit the market this week. Karen is one of the realest people we know, and in this interview, we get to talk to her about what it takes to suck at something, the title of her new book, specifically what it takes to suck at surfing, which, to be honest, it's really easy to suck at for me, but she somehow does it with grace. Karen's earlier work, such as The End of Men, was the basis for the 2016 feature film Maggie's Plan, directed by Rebecca Miller and starring Julianne Moore, Greta Gerwig, and Ethan Hawke. Little 80s crush right in there. In this interview, we get advice that you just won't hear from your life coach. Karen is so real, and her just keep going, keep writing, keep learning, there are no shortcuts attitude is enough to keep you moving forward and honestly to feel great about the decade of work you've probably already done, because Karen says that's what you need. I hope you learned so much from this very exclusive interview with the one and only Karen Rinaldi.
Hello, this is Jay Alders, and I'd like to invite you over to jalders.com to check out my artwork. I've done art for bands like 311, Slightly Stupid, Donovan Frankenreiter, and Mishka. I also have art on posters and canvas prints and apparel that is inspired by surf culture and the ocean and outdoor lifestyles and romance and yoga and rock climbing. All the things that I love to do, I paint about, and I hope it brings some inspiration to you. So go to jalders.com, and if you are a new subscriber to my newsletter, you can get 10% off on your first purchase. You'll see a link for join my newsletter, and every week I send out creative tips and art releases and sales and promotions and new videos that I'm putting out. I had some new prints released in the past couple of weeks, so if you haven't seen that, go check it out. I'm also finishing up my book, which has been 3+ years in the making. I'm hoping to release a Kickstarter in the next month or so stay tuned for that. I'm really excited about getting that book out into the world. You should also check out what Chelsea is doing. She is a birth doula. And if you are planning on having a baby or pregnant or in that mindset or know someone that is, she has a lot of resources on her website and offers birth doula services both virtually and in person. You can go to ommamasdoulas.com and check her out. And last but not least, if you haven't done so yet, please click subscribe. We bring you a new episode every week, and that will ensure that you get it delivered right to your podcast app. And please find us on all social medias. We respond to everything. We love your comments. It means so much to us. We recorded this episode a couple of months ago. We wanted to wait until Karen's book was released, and this week it was. It's out there. Check it out. And on that last note, let's get to the conversation with Karen Rinaldi. Hey, Karen, thanks for joining us. We're stoked to talk to you. I always love our conversations so much. We had a good one a couple months ago, and ever since then, I've been looking forward to another.
Yeah, same here. Jay, Chelsea, hello, good morning.
Hi.
So thank you for having me on.
Yes. So I guess we'll start at the at your career, because for someone that is a fan of yours from your books or from your writing or from your career in general, I'm sure they're wondering how the heck you got here. Can you give us some background on how exactly you've succeeded so enormously for the past 2 decades plus in the publishing world?
Thank you for that vote of confidence. About
for the record,
success.
Karen does not suck
I've done
at everything.
Okay.
Yes, you're.
I've done okay, but it was a wiggly and line to the work that I do. So there was nothing predetermined or nothing I thought I wanted to get here. So most people are surprised to hear that my first professional foray was as an international tax consultant at Price Waterhouse.
What?
In the
Come
80s.
on! Are you kidding
Swear to
me?
God.
How did that fact? How did that
makes no
fact slip
sense.
by our conversations before?
because it's almost nonsensical, so that you can't just drop it without a few minutes of explanation.
I could have
how
been
that
asking
happened.
you for tax advice this whole time.
Oh man, we had no
Jeez,
idea.
You know what?
Karen.
It honestly, I blessedly forgot all that crap because I hated it so much. Even when I was doing it, though I had an aptitude for it, which is really weird. Which will make sense. So what happened is that I always had my first love has been language and literature, but because I grew up in a way in a world where that didn't have any obvious application, I fought it for since I was a kid. I mean, it's all I loved when I was very young and in high school and in college, and then didn't know what I would do with it, and I tripped and stumbled. All I knew is I wanted to go live in Paris right after college, and so I took off on a one-way ticket to Paris, thinking I was fluent in French. Of course, you get there and you realize speaking high school and college French has nothing to do with speaking the language. But anyway, I get there, and somebody had connected me to a friend had connected me to a job there, and it wound up being working as an intern at Price Waterhouse. Crazy. I just needed a job. I needed to do something. I needed some grounding. I thought, yeah, sure, I'll take anything that'll ground me here, and wound up making connections and liking the people very much. And so when I came back to New York, 6 or 7 months later, Price Waterhouse New York hired me. It was so crazy, and I thought, okay, this is not where I thought I'd land, but I needed a job, and this is the job grown-ups are supposed to have, right?
Yeah.
They don't write or study literature, read poetry. They get a job in accounting, and so I did that for 4 years.
Wow.
What credentials did you have? Did they train you on the job, or did you study?
Yeah, they did. They did. What was weird is that they hired some liberal arts students, not only business students. They did, and they trained you in the job. In order to go forward, you'd have to get the proper training, and that's the point at which I dropped out. I realized, what am I doing? I hate this stuff. I don't want to, be an accountant. But I had an aptitude for it, which was weird, and it was partly because of my. Going back, how you can only make sense of things retrospectively. So this makes sense to me now. But I had a knack for two things that a lot of accountants probably didn't have, which is I was able to read the tax code and interpret it because I was a good reader. And that's something that, not that I liked doing it, but I could do it.
No, but I imagine people who are numbers only struggle with that side of it.
Exactly, with that part of it. And, we don't want to make gross generalizations, but Chelsea, I totally think that that's part of it. And then the other thing was that I was a people person. I love people. And so I was great with clients. And so they would push me in front of clients all the time because I not only could, advise them on their taxes, but I could make it less scary. I could also give them tips about where to go with their families and what to do, what theater to see and what. So it was this kind of, it worked in this way that I realized, I could do this, but I was really unhappy. So I dropped out. I left, which was hard because I was doing very, very well in it and moving very quickly. But I was like, what am I doing? I don't want to do this.
Yeah. And we can talk about that, in relation to so many people that we hear from, because that literally is what happens to people, is that you find something you might be good at, but it's not something that actually makes you happy, which is.
Yes. And that's going, it all comes back, it all circle back, or a lot of it will circle back to the suck at something thing, which is we're terrified to do the things. We're terrified to do the things we want to do that we're afraid we won't be good at. We also put a valence on the things we want to do and judge ourselves more harshly, right? So what we do is you slip into the things that you're going to be good at. You get all that praise. And, in my case, I was making good money and, on the partner track. And it was, I thought, wow, this is it, except I'm not happy. I don't want to be doing this every day. And I started getting headaches. My vision started, I had all these weird physiological reactions to it that were signs of saying, you have to get out. But, you shut those. I mean, we do the dumbest, we do crazy things to ourselves. You shut down those signs. you think they're about something else. And really it was just that I was sort of killing my soul. Right. And not that, by the way, not that doing that work is soul killing. I happen to love, I still love numbers and finance and.
Well, and some people that's like incredibly fulfilling. It just didn't happen to be the thing that filled you up. That's all.
Well, I thought it was interesting, and I was good at it, but my soul was not nourished from it. And so I left, and I left under really tough circumstances because the people I worked for were very upset. My father kept saying, "Are you crazy? You're like, you've got this amazing gig. Like, why would you leave that?" It's like, because I can't do it anymore. And I went to grad school. I thought, okay, I'll go. My first love was French literature. I'll go study grad school. I'll go to study French lit in grad school and become an academic. It was, I spent that time in France. I thought I could split my time between France and the US. And I had to, because I was, international studies major, which is just a BS major that means nothing in my undergrad. And then I did Price Waterhouse. NYU grad school was looking at me going, what? Like, why would we let you into the grad program? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think I can do it.
You know what? Nothing says job security like French literature.
Yeah.
I sort of went, I reacted. I went all the way to the other way. But even NYU was looking at me and just saying, no, I don't think so. Like, you can't. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what. And one thing I can do is I can talk my way into and out of almost anything. I talked my way into grad school. And I said, I'll tell you what, let me in. And if I can't do it, I'll leave. But I was willing to pay, and I was a grown up, and so they graciously, or whatever, they took my money, they let me in, and I did that for about a year and a half. I don't even remember. And it was a disaster. Oh. I hated academia. I was like, oh my God, this is the opposite of where I was, where it was so
pretentious, right?
Well, yes, but okay, is that the kind of lit crit.
But she's still in that world. Like, that surprises me that you didn't like it, because you kind of ended up recircling back. So I'm interested to hear how this goes. Keep going.
Yeah, well, you'll see it all connects, right? Yeah. I mean, again, it connects because we tell stories to make them connect. But I think it's the way it's like you kind of try to make sense of your life. Otherwise, we'd all go crazy. So I did that for a while and realized this is not, it's not living. There's no application to the real world. Like, it wasn't connected. And I loved the study of it. I do love the study of literature, and I feel like that's definitely something, of value. And I still I'm sort of a nerd about it, but I thought this is not fulfilling that kind of, real world immediate application of the way in which I want to live. And so I dropped out of grad school, and I had a breakdown. I mean, I had a complete breakdown. Like, I didn't know, that thing, you're in your 20s. Who am I? What do I want to do? I was lost. This is all I thought I wanted to do. And I don't like, one thing, and then I swung the other way, and I don't like that. And in my struggling and talking to people, someone asked me, have you ever thought about publishing? And I said, no, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anybody in publishing. I came from a world where publishing was just not, I loved books, but the creating of them never even occurred to me. I never thought about it. And they said, well, it's the business of books. So you kind of like, you can marry your, I had this business head and I had this literary head, and they seemed like they wouldn't line up. But in fact, in publishing, and then in my career, they lined up unusually and actually really well. So what happened is that I wound up, took me a long time, because again, who was going to talk to me? I was failed at grad school. I was an accountant. I mean, who was going to hire me in publishing? So by this time, I'm already 28 years old, and I'd been floundering. And somebody gave me a shot. Somebody gave me a chance at Random House. And I was much older. I was hired. I was hired as an editorial assistant. So I was making half the salary of what I had been making when I left the accounting job. And I just basically started all over again. And I walked in the door. I'll never, ever forget this. I walked in the door at Random House, and I went, I'm home. Like, I got it. Yeah. It felt right. And I don't even know what that meant, because I didn't have any of my education was wrong. My background was wrong in a way. I didn't know what I was doing, but it spoke to me, and I was like, okay, I get this. I'm going to figure this one out. And that was in 1988. So I've been doing this for 31 years. I can't believe that.
Wow.
But is that true? Yeah, 31 years. Am I doing the math right?
Yeah, you're right.
You're the accountant.
You're
the accountant. You tell us.
Not anymore. Not anymore. Not anymore. But yeah, so that's it. It was not, everyone, I think this is the thing everyone does. You see people where they are, and you always think they landed there easily and with great intention and without struggle. And you think, no, that's when I started in publishing, by the way. I also did it. I left it once. I came back around to it. I left it. I walked out of that after 4.5 years. I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm going to make no money and work, 60, 70-hour weeks. What am I doing? And so I walked out and I came back and, anyway, yeah, here I am.
No, I mean, it's, for me, you're hitting home because, so I actually that I had a natural thing for writing. I loved writing in high school, and that was what I thought I would do. And then I went to college for marine biology because there's no career in writing. And then 2 years into it, it was I went away to Europe, same thing. And I discovered the Beat Generation. It's funny because I was in Europe and discovered American writers and discovered the Beat Generation.
Oh, yeah. That makes total sense to me, actually.
Yeah, right? It's really because they have a fascination. It's so funny. And I came home thinking, no, I'm obsessed with this. But again, no application. But it did pivot me towards public relations, communications, that type of thing instead. But it's funny, there's just no fit when you have this passion for writing and books and just that structure. You just see yourself struggling in New York City. It's what you picture.
And that's what everybody does. That's what we all do. And that's okay. It's funny. I talk about this a lot. So this falling in love with, writing literature, which is, one of the great, books are such one of the greatest gifts. And they excite me every single day, every day, picking up a book. If I'm not writing, editing, publishing, I'll read. And the most exciting thing for me to do is to be able to get to read because I've pushed, because I've done my work and then I get to go and I get to read. So they still, books still excite me that much. But I think what happens is that people go, so when things become transactional, right? And you think, books, reading, literature, making a living. And I think what happens, I think the hard thing is that there are very few people, and Jay, this too, painter, musician, writer. Any of the surfing, most creative things that we want to do, the things that we, fill our soul don't necessarily pay the bills. And then we get all messed up about it, but we romanticize it when we're young and we think, oh yeah, that kind of bohemian, long suffering artist and, having to forage for your food and all that stuff. Yeah. And then you go, well, wait a minute, you can actually, here's the big secret. I do think that if you can get your ego out of the way and get the predetermined story out of the way and get, all the judgment out of the way, you can do all of it. It's just that doing all of it means you have to work to balance it. You have to make sure that you don't get lost in the thing. I think you can make a living and do your art. And the question is, I published a book by a guy named Jesse Browner called How Did I Get Here, who is a wonderful novelist. He's one of my favorite writers of my generation. And he's had a job at the UN for, 25 years as an interpreter and running in the General Assembly. He runs the interpretation or the translation pool, sorry. And he's also he's a wonderful writer, but he's always struggled and said, did I sacrifice my writing career, my art, for, a job and a pension and taking care of my family? And he and I have talked about this. I've known him for decades. He and I have had this conversation forever. And the book he wrote is the contemplation of that question. And it's beautiful and it's powerful. And I think the answer is no, you didn't sacrifice. He actually had both. It meant that he got up at 5 a.m. and wrote before he went to work. And it meant that he would get frustrated because he couldn't, just disappear and go to writers retreats and blah, 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 but he took care of his family, which is a huge honor and, to do. I mean, it's not, I think we tend to think about it as an obligation and something that gets in our way, but I actually think that it is the opposite. I think it's a great privilege to be able to, and to take care of your family in that way. And then you don't have to shut down your soul, your creative part of you. And I think that is, if there's one thing I like to tell people, it's like we get caught up in the story that isn't real as opposed to the real story. And if we can do that, you can do both. Now, and we can talk about that. I mean, my writing, I've been writing my whole life and I've only been publishing recently. And there are reasons for that. But I feel like you can, the balance is, you guys know, you have kids, right? So like, you don't have kids and then all of a sudden you have kids and everything becomes about trying to balance your life. And here you are with 3 kids at home who are sick and you're doing a podcast. Anything might happen at any moment.
Just outing us. You're just like
going,
that.
Yeah, I can deal. Yeah, that's true. That's just the way it's going to be. I have a job. I'm here doing this podcast, but I worked on my job all weekend.
Yeah.
So because I had to get something done. So it's like, my Sunday was given over to editing someone's book all day. So Monday morning, I have 2 hours where I'll be doing something else. And to me, it's all connected anyway. So it's that balance and not judging any of the sides of it, right? Not judging the transactional work that you do, not judging the stuff you have. People say like, I have to go to work. I have to go, get the paycheck. And you're going, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're independently wealthy, and you've got an annuity, coming in or something,
You've brought up like 15 points here that I think we want to touch upon. So I want to start a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the, because I think you're sort of pivoting around this book, Suck at Something. So I want to talk a little bit about your principles behind that, because one, the surfing thing was completely relatable to me because I seriously suck, but I really love it. And that's actually part of that balance thing too. Like it's been a while because of the kids, but I still have it in the back. Like, you can still feel that like angst of like, I remember what it feels like and I'm going to get back out there. But let's talk about where that book came from and like the principles behind it.
Sure. So I think I started surfing really late in life. Most people would say laughably late, and most real surfers would say, why do you bother? So I was 40. I think surfers are going to, I was like, oh God, real surfers are going to hate my book. But I was 40 and it was something I'd always wanted to do, right? So I wanted to surf my whole life, but I was terrified. I could oh God, something that I thought, oh, that's for other people. I wish I could do it, but I'm just too scared.
Well, so how old were your kids at this point?
Well, so what happened is that I had my first kid. I had Rocco in 1998. And as soon as I had Rocco, this is a crazy thing that happened. Something shifted in my brain. And all of the petty fears that I had, I was afraid of, big fish in the ocean. I was afraid of I don't know. I was afraid of things that I didn't need to be afraid of. And I became, and the fear shifted into, oh my God, can I take care of this creature, this person, this child that I love more than I could even fathom? How do I protect him? And the fears became like, sort of these meta fears, and all the other fears just like it was all bullshit. I just they left, they went away. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. I can try surfing now. I know that's a weird leap to make.
That's weird to hear, because I feel like for me, I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like as soon as I became a parent, all the stuff that I never really feared, or I thought it was like calculated risks, all of a sudden became like the opposite, where like, oh my God, I'm now taking care of this beautiful little girl. I have to like make sure I'm healthy and happy and alive to do this. And things that I once took giant risks, I would go paddle out in like 4 feet overhead hurricanes like that, all of a sudden became like this new fear of like, I don't know about that. I have a daughter now. Like it was like the total opposite for me.
Yeah, no. And you know what? That actually makes total sense to me. I mean, that makes sense. I would be afraid, like when I traveled, I'd be like, oh, damn. Like when I traveled, I didn't care. The plane went down. I didn't have a kid. Whatever happened. Then when I would travel and get on the plane, and I'd say, oh my God, this plane can't go down. I can't leave my kid. But surfing, like you took, a good surfer, a real surfer, and you would take risks. I wasn't taking.
To be bluntly honest, I'm not a good surfer at all.
Yeah, but you were already doing it. She's saying.
Well, nobody says they are, but no one says they are. I don't know. I've met, maybe the top 10 or the top 30 or 40 or whatever. Know that they're good, but everybody says they're a kook. But I mean, but it doesn't matter because it's relative, right? But yes, I understand that. I feel like there's something that happens in your brain, all that oxytocin that happens when a baby, when a baby's born. Oxytocin can be a fear inhibitor. I mean, that's how it works in your brain. And I felt like for me, it was a fear inhibitor, except when it came to taking care of Rocco. So, I mean, I kind of, I don't know. I got more, and maybe Chelsea, maybe you can relate to this too. I don't know, but it's like, I felt fierce. I was like, I could push that baby out of my body and then feed that baby and take care of that baby. I can do anything.
So do you know the science you just touched upon is actually, so I teach that in my hypnobirthing class because it's actually so important for people to know that when there's oxytocin existent, that those fear hormones can't exist. It actually cancels each other out. So that's why we like search for that like those happy hormones. It's actually the endorphins.
The endorphins, right. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And I didn't know you did that. That's great that you do that coaching. Wow. I guess, you've done it. But it's also this stuff that's like empowering, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, I felt totally fierce. And I think that for me, it did feel different. And that's actually when I shifted my whole career because I felt like I can do it now where maybe I didn't have the courage before. So I think that's relatable for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I think women post, you get over the postpartum, which is always,
yeah, we're not talking 2 weeks after you have a baby here.
We're talking we're talking, exactly. But something does, I mean, if we're lucky, but something kicks in, something kicked in for me. So that's what happened. I decided, okay, I'm going to try this thing. I'm old. I know that I'm older. I mean, I was 39 years old or 38. And I thought, I'm old to try this, but I have to try it. And now I'm not afraid to try it. So anyway, I decided I was going to try it. And bam, I sign up for a lesson. I get pregnant with Gio, my second son, which was not planned. Yeah. And I was like, okay, this is, it's a blessing, of course, but I didn't want to, I could have, but I didn't want to surf pregnant. I didn't know how to do it. It was like, that just seemed risky to me. So then I put it off for another couple of years. Then I had a 2-year-old and an infant. I was running a company. I was, managing the family, and I thought there was just no room for it. And then I remember one day I thought, I will never forgive myself if I don't just do this. I have to try it. And then I'll push it away because I'm not going to be able to do it. I'll push it away, and that'll be the end of it. And it was the summer of my 40th birthday, and I took a lesson. And the guy, and this is in my book, but the guy asked me, do you snowboard? No. Do you ski? No. Do you skateboard? No. Do you water ski? No. I'm like, I'm a middle-aged, out of shape mother of 2, working in an office, a 60-hour week. I'm just
so inspiring, though. Like that takes some balls. Yeah. Just wanted to do it. It takes some balls,
but can you imagine the surf instructor just like rolling his eyes, going, "Oh God, not enough." Like really? I mean, I could totally see me in his eyes, and I was sort of this annoying person. But I just thought I had. And you know what? He was so generous. And this is the big part of this book. One of the biggest takeaways from this book is that people are so generous. He said, I'm going to get you up anyway. Yeah. And I said, okay. And you know what? He did. I mean, I'm talking New Jersey surf, knee high on a 11-foot foamy. I mean, yes. Anybody, a chicken could have surfed on that board, but you know what? He pushed me in. I stood up, and it was that thing. It's that click, right? That you get or you don't get. And I imagine it's like, and I know that people, talk about addiction and surfing and how they're parallel, but I went, oh shit, I love this. I'm going to and I ran home. I literally ran home like a half a mile to my house, breathless, going, oh my God. And that was it. that was it. I locked in and I decided that I was just going to try this. And then I kept trying. I mean, again, I was a weekend warrior. It was ridiculous, but I did sort of shift my life to say, all right, this is the thing I'm going to try and do. And, I tell the story in the book where it took me, and this sounds absurd, it took me 5 years to actually catch a wave. And I don't mean whitewater. I don't mean the little waves. I mean to paddle into, drop into, hit the bottom, turn, surf a wave. It took me 5 years to do it. And
we're going to see a major uptake in like 40-something women on the beach this summer.
And nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. But what's weird is that I wrote this piece for the New York Times and it really resonated. I don't know if it resonated. The point was that, so what happened is that I did this and people would ask me and I would ask myself, why do I do it? Why would you do something you're never going to get good at that takes all this effort? I literally shifted my entire life around.
Yeah, it looks crazy to people, right? Like, what's the point? Is how people's mentality is.
What are you going to get out of it?
Especially when you consider it that even when you are eventually proficient at surfing, most of your rides are only like 5 seconds, if that.
If you're lucky.
Yeah. So from an outside perspective, you're spending 5 years to like stand up on a wave for a few seconds to throw your arms in the air and claim it, and everyone else is like looking at you like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's a strange hobby to comprehend.
It is really hard, and I try to explain it, and I know every surfing magazine, every surf writer, everyone tries to explain it, and it's hard to know until you do it, and then you do. And I actually believe, I'm not alone in this. I believe it's because there's no other thing you can do, activity where you literally, the only way to do it is to plug in to the energy that the earth is giving you. Because if you don't plug in, you don't catch the wave. You can't ride it, right? And if you don't connect with it, you can't make the sections and you can't finish your ride. And you're thinking, what else do you do where you have to like plug in? Like if you're skiing, gravity is going to pull you along.
Yeah.
If you're sailing, you've got the wind and, you have to plug into that too, but the wind is going to push you. When you surf, you have to paddle you have to go catch up to the speed of the wave. I mean, the dynamics of it, and then you have to jump up, you have to pop up, you have to plug in. And that plug-in is sort of the thing we're looking for in everything we do.
Yeah.
But in surfing, it's an enactment of that thing that we
It's like
want.
The actual
and
flow
I think
instead
it
of a
lights
state
up
of
our
flow.
brains in ways that nothing else does.
And there's like a very like romantic sense to it when you think that energy came from, the middle of the ocean thousands of miles away.
Yes.
And for me, I would add, like, from my perspective, I think art is another one of those activities where you just plug in, because I could be painting for like 6 hours at a pop, and I might only actually plug in and feel that complete connectedness for maybe a couple of seconds, and the rest of my painting session is just chasing that feeling like, wait a minute, I just saw it, get back there. And like,
flow.
It's so,
flow,
that
right?
flow.
It's flow. I mean, but I think that's true. I think that I think that's true when people probably play tennis, when they play golf, when they're doing surgery, I think it probably is flow is one of those states. A flow state is something that we're all seeking. I mean, I write about it in the book. This is something that Roland, who's a novelist, a French novelist, and Sigmund Freud talked about it, called this the oceanic feeling. I love that it's called the oceanic feeling because of what we do. But it's that feeling. It's feeling, unus mundus. It's the feeling of oneness with the world. I mean, it's not hokey. It's actually what we all seek. But to be able to do that, right? And you're talking about your painting, Jay. In order to do that, what has to happen? You have to let go of your ego.
Yes.
Your ego disappears at that moment, and that's why it feels so good. But it's a weird thing to chase the dissipation of your ego, right? Because then you say, well, wait a minute, chasing something is actually the wrong thing, because that's part of our problem, is that we're always chasing after something. And then to sort of look for the absence of something, it's like we get confused. So it's not really chasing, it's just it's almost like the opposite. It's like opening up and being so still that the ego dissolves, and then you understand that you're part of everything else. And the sounds, again, it's like if there's something that sounds hokey, and I know if you religion, if you look to religions and spiritual practices, and there are so many places to find these ideas. And then if you go back to surfing, I think when you're on a wave, and we're on the face of that wave and you're riding it, you're in that space, or you can be in that space. And but it's a physical manifestation of it. So you can go after it and look for it. So
what I love about this is like, you see the amount of creatives that you see inspired by this to do various things. Like, you've decided to write about it because you've been so inspired. Jay's decided to paint it because it was so inspiring. We just had Sean Davey on, the photographer, who's like, he just has to photograph it. Like, it's so inspiring to me what ocean does for people. It's like it pivots that creative side.
Well, what's interesting about the ocean too is that it's that, because we're of it, right? That's where we came from. So if you look at Wallace J. Nichols, right, and you read Blue Mind, a lot of the work that he does, like, we are pulled to it. But I don't know if you guys meet a lot of people. There's so many people who are terrified of it and just say, oh man, I'm not going in the ocean. Like, there are scary things in the ocean, those waves. And you realize the fear, and I think that great fear and that great love of it are sort of the same thing. I think they're all part of the same thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because, going back to what you were saying earlier, what I was thinking with the painting thing, it's that like brief moment of flow, and then you lose it. And I find this is one of the things I've been writing about in my book, is like when you like lose touch with that, it's almost like you're trying to take control of it. You're trying to alter its flow. It's like being on a wave and then literally trying to change the actual wave instead of flowing with it. And when I'm painting, I could be in the flow, and then all of a sudden it's almost like I'm trying to take conscious control of the energy instead of just going with it. And when I do that, it's lost.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's beautifully said. I think that is the crux of it, right? It's all of a sudden you're aware of the flow, and then it's gone because you're going to try to hold on to it. And when you try to grasp it.
So Jay, I take my sleep very seriously. You know that.
I know this. This is true. Don't mess with Chelsea's sleep.
And here's the thing is that I'm a birth doula. So it's actually kind of funny because
you don't get much sleep anyway.
I don't get any sleep. It's really kind of crazy. The game changer for me for getting back into a really good sleep cycle has been CBD oil. For sure.
Down with CBD?
So Jay did some due diligence and found a absolutely well-known, actually, right? And
very
phenomenal
well-known
brand.
company that decided to actually partner with us, which we're excited about.
Super excited. And
Charlotte's Web.
What a better fit for our first full-time affiliate, right? Like full on.
We're both stoked. We've been using CBD for, I don't know, like half a year or a year?
Probably coming up to a year, yeah. But it actually gets me like really back into the exact flow of sleep that I need.
And I use it to not be such a stressful husband. As you can tell. It does actually help, though. I have a lot of everyday stress from work and from being a dad, and I find that it does kind of take the edge off.
Yeah, so we've got some links and some codes for you guys.
Yeah, so if you guys are interested in checking out Charlotte's Web CBD, you can go to jalders.com/CBD. That's going to get you 10% off everything except for the bulk and the original. And we have to say this, and I'm saying this in italics, that everything we've said is not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration, and none of this is intended to diagnose, treat, or cure, or prevent any diseases. So we are not doctors. We don't play them on the podcast. Once again, that's jalders.com/CBD. Don't forget to use code ALDERS for 10% off. That's spelled ALDERS.
I think that's a good parallel to your career in general, because I was reading that article you wrote about how hard it is to edit yourself. And I think it's interesting to understand which part of these processes you really not even enjoy, but the ones that they click in for you, because you obviously like writing, but editing is what you do. So talk a little bit about that parallel for you.
I feel like I can make an ocean. I think there's always an ocean metaphor, a surfing metaphor for this stuff. And I was thinking about this the other day. So I think there are parallels there. You know how, like, when you're sitting on a board, and I think a lot of people think about sitting on a board and they go, what's under, and we all think about this sometimes. It's like, what's underneath me?
Try
right?
really hard not to.
I know. Well, we all do. But I mean, most people at one point some point think about that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what's under there? So I think it's not so much that we're really afraid of, is there a shark? Yes. So there's dolphins and sharks and rays and fish and stuff. There's a lot of things in there. But it's just because we're on the surface and what we cannot see, we are afraid of, right? Or what we cannot see, we somehow can't fathom. It feels like we can't, control it. It's that fear of the unknown or the unseeable, the unknowable. When you're writing versus when you're editing, the beauty about editing, and I think this is why I took so long I've been writing my whole life, but it took me a really long time to share it and to put it out in the world, which is I can see the fault and the missteps and the things that need fixing in somebody else's writing. I can see them clear as day. I love to do it. I love to help. I love to dig in. I love to get inside someone's head because you can, someone's writing tells, even in the mistakes that people make or the missteps they make, there is so much information in there. And it's a little bit forensic almost when you're editing. And I love that. It's a way of getting intimate with someone. It's a way of there's a real communication. There's a flow state that you can get in when you're editing where you sublimate your own ego and you're in the writer's head. And it's a really satisfying, thing to do. And I love to do it. When you're writing, what's interesting is that you can't do that. So you become the person who's putting stuff on the page. And then when you try to dig into it, there are things you cannot see. It's almost it's not, this is, a good writer. This is what the job is to make sure that you put down on the page what you intend. But something happens in the putting it down on the page where sometimes you don't quite get there. And you can't see the fault lines as clearly as somebody else can. So
I could see where your accounting has taken manifested into your career, like the idea of looking into the numbers and seeing mistakes or seeing things that are going on that the person that made that asinine mistake with the numbers didn't see.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. I can't believe you just said that, Jay, because you know what I used to say? Because people, so we'll go back to my career in a second, but one of the things that happened is that everybody asked me, how did an editor wind up running a company or two companies? And because I would be able to look at balance sheets and P&Ls and financial, scenarios and strat plans and understand them very, very well. I could look at them. Actually, I could look at them and read them just as well as I could read narrative. And people would say, I don't understand how you can do that. You're an editor, you're a writer, you're a literary person. I said, no. Numbers tell stories too. They're just telling a story with numbers and figures, and they are powerful storytellers just as words are. And so I would actually look at it in the same way. And so if you look at a spreadsheet, or if you're looking at numbers, that's telling there. And by the way, it's telling, and it's hidden and it's secret, because if you don't know how to read it, like poetry, right? If you can't decipher it, you don't actually know what you're looking at, because you can make numbers tell. You can talk about numbers and make them tell any story you want, which happens all the time in financial reports, actually. But if you were really going to dig in and do, and examine it, it's usually the story beneath the story, and the interpretation of it is way different. So to me, it's all the same.
This is reminding me or making me think of how I look at art. Like when we go to a museum, I drive Chelsea freaking batshit crazy, because I'll sit there and stare at one painting or one section of a painting for as long as she'll let me, until she's like, can we go in the next room now? Because
yes.
I can look at a painting from 1541 or something, and someone might see a monk in a church, and that's all they see, and they walk on. I'm looking at how the brush strokes were rendered. I'm looking at the cross-hatching, the blending techniques. I'm thinking about the medium that was used. I'm wondering why they chose these colors to sit next to each other and how that affects the piece. And I'm kind of doing the same thing like you're describing with the accounting.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the beauty of sort of knowing, that great study of something, which doesn't come from being a casual, observer. It comes from great, long thinking, studying, doing, right? It's because you paint, and you are a painter also, is that you can see things because you physically know what it is to hold a brush and to make those decisions on a canvas or a piece of wood, and how hard it is to make it look good. And of course, when you do it, it looks easy, because whenever anybody's good at something, it looks. I mean, that's it. It looks easy, and that's also part of the book. One of the messages I wanted to get across was we, especially now, maybe forever, but we judge people's efforts all the time, and people. I mean, right now it's pretty dark out there with the, commenter sections of any online, but we're always judging and saying like, that's crap, and that person didn't do this, and blah, blah. And I felt like saying, well, can you do it? Can you do better? Can you surf better? Can you paint better? Can you write better? Can you run a company better? Can you, can you make that food better? Like, if we just stop and say, things are hard, shit's hard. So before you judge, why don't you look at what you do yourself? Look at what you do well, look at what you love to do or maybe don't do well, and look at what you're doing. And then when you realize how hard things are and how much time you put in, you sort of have more patience and tolerance, and you judge less about other people's efforts. Like, at work, when you're in an office, there's always that thing where it's like, I wish the publicist would just do that, or the marketing person would just do that, or why doesn't somebody in production just make it this? And I'm going, really? Because if you understood what the person in production has to go through to make this book, where you don't even see the work that's done. So just to say, I want them to shave a month off the schedule. Well, do you know how many people are going to be affected by that? What the ripple effect is? And so when you see things like that, you start being more generous about people's time and effort, and that to me is like, it's a kind of grace.
Or just like focus on your own growth. Like that, isn't that a big part of it? I mean, I've always loved writing, and the most balls I ever had to go towards it was writing a blog right after I had the twins, because I was so inspired. And I can't even read. I mean, it was great. I got 27,000 reads. I was super proud of it. It was a really good thing. So good. But if I go back and read the comments now, they will enrage me. Like, people just, take all this time to write commentary, but don't write their own thing. Yes. Like, it's just so interesting. People are wounded, and they're looking to augment their own ego by cracking on other people. Yeah.
Yeah. And you just can't. Well, that's the other thing is that, it's up to us not to pay attention to it.
Right.
But also, we should not enter it either. Like, we should be careful. Like, when you read something, you go, okay, I see the effort. Listen, I read a lot of stuff that just isn't good. I mean, most of the stuff by writers doesn't work.
Yeah, they just get the one gem.
Even writers have a hard time writing.
Yeah.
Surfers have a hard time. Surfing's hard even for pretty good surfers, right? Like, I know pretty good, I don't know. I mean, I know pros, and what they'll do is that they'll just put themselves in situations where it's hard again. But, people at every level, it's going to be hard. And I think that you can't, again, just watching the number of times that you look and you go, why didn't he make that pass? Why wasn't that pitch better? I mean, you can take any sport, any effort, and look at the ways in which we sort of toss out these judgments. And again, if you look at yourself sucking at something, and doing it anyway, you become a lot kinder to everybody else in a way. And you invite kindness in.
Yes. Well, so I think we're talking a lot about that super creative mind. I'm interested in hearing from your perspective, sitting in the publishing house side. We had Scott, published as Steve Scott Patterson on here, talking about that more strategic way of money-making writing. So how often is it you're coming across people that are just pure creative, as opposed to this world of technology where we're just hacking the system now? Like, is it a weird world in publishing?
No, and that gaming and hacking the system is that's a lie. I mean, not when it comes, it is not when it comes to writing, not when it comes to your health. I mean, it's like all that, the disruptors and that, technology is technology, and it's hardware and software, and it's all, it's useful, and it facilitates, so much. But when it comes to, and it's funny that you ask it, Chelsea, because it's a question that I get in a lot of different guises, which is, aren't books over, or isn't publishing over? Actually, what's really interesting is that the publishing industry is doing well. I mean, it's always been a very small industry. Mm-hmm. Readers have been, there aren't in a weird way, there aren't that many readers, right? So it's been a closed market since forever, right? It's a small closed market. But there's no way to write a good book except to write a good book that people want to read. And that's one of the hardest things in the world. That's why there are so few of them.
Yeah.
So this idea that there's a workaround. So when you're saying writers who write for the money, there are technical writers. People write technical text. They write educational tracks.
Yeah.
They write copy, for catalogs and, people on websites. If you ever look at a website that's not been professionally done and you read the copy, and sometimes, you kind of go, yeah, like writers do a real thing, which is to write sentence after sentence that actually makes sense and have an ultimate point. Yeah. I know, and I don't say that to be snarky. I say that that's hard. That's actually hard to do. And people don't understand it. So to write a book that's entertaining and, to write a book like, Hanya Yanagihara is one of my favorite, wrote one of my favorite novels in the past decade called A Little Life, which is a book that is incredibly difficult to read because it's so sad. And it's so beautiful though. And it's so powerful. And you couldn't pitch or imagine or script or do that book. And you couldn't predict its success because there's nothing to point to except she wrote it. It's brilliant. People read it and love it. People also read it and hate it, but okay, but and the book sold, really, really well. How does that happen? That's what it's like, it's answering the question of like, how does great art happen? I don't, I'm in it. I don't know. I don't know.
Like that being said, though, there is like, I think it's like, you can't deny that there is like either a political or a business agenda, or there's other factors besides just great material, because like we can both, like all of us, rattle off like musicians that we know that we're like, why the fuck doesn't everyone know this band because they are so good? Or like I look at, there's certain artists, or the opposite. I walk in a gallery in Manhattan and I can look around and be like, this art is so shitty, but it's like getting so much money. There's like so much of that other side of it too, right? Like,
okay, so here's the thing. Okay, no, I totally hear what you're saying. And so you think it's gamed and everything else, but so, this is one of the things that I say, and it would apply to music and to art as well. But I say that, people ask me about publishing because that's the only thing that I know inside out and backwards. I don't know as much about art and music. But I say the hardest thing to do is to write a book that people want to read. End of story. Yeah. People say, how is it? It's like, write a book that people want to read. It doesn't mean that it's, and then when you say, well, does it have to be good? And then you go, well, good according to whose criteria? E.L. James wrote those gray novels, those, soft or whatever it's called, softcore erotica books, whatever they're called, the Shades of Grey books.
Yes, yeah.
Wow, chicka wow.
And, and if you look at those and you go like, I couldn't, but I'm in awe of E.L. James for having written these, and they were the biggest books.
I got through like a quarter of one of them, and I just didn't. I don't know. It was
no. I agree. I couldn't read. I actually couldn't. I couldn't get through a couple of pages of it. So again, I don't want to criticize. That's like all due respect to
it's
her
just
and
not
her
my
writing.
style
But you know
of
what?
writing.
She wrote something. She wrote something at a moment that touched a nerve. And who's to say? Who's to judge if people liked it, loved it, enjoyed it? It opened up some kind of erotic, closed part of themselves. Who knows what happened? But you to just like, and I know because I fall into that trap and I'll judge it and go turn my nose up at it and going, well, wait a minute, like who likes it? Like people wanted to read that book.
Yeah, and maybe it got some people to read that don't usually read. So let's go with
well,
it.
You know what? That's huge though, and I'll take it. I'll take that because that might bring those people to something else. J.K. Rowling, when she wrote Harry Potter books, people were, crapping all over that. And she's this and she's that. I mean, she's a genius. Yeah. I mean, we know that now. But people were, brutal about that too. And you're saying, and then people saying, kids don't read 800-page books. No, they don't until you write one that they want to read. Right. And then they read it. Then they do read it. So my thing is that, yes, there are going to be artists in every discipline who are going to succeed in spite of the critical the approval of a critical eye of others, right? And is Jeff Koons a genius and a great artist, or is he a hack? Is Andy Warhol a graphic designer, or is he a great artist? There's so many questions that you can ask. Is Maroon 5, what's that their name? Are they a ridiculous pop band or a sellout?
I was just gonna say, is that why Andy Warhol's on your mind? I heard about that commercial. Did you watch it?
No, which one?
There was some Super Bowl commercial with Andy Warhol eating a McDonald's cheeseburger, I think, or Burger King. I don't know, one of them. And you just watched him eat a burger. That was the commercial.
But it was for
it was either McDonald's or Burger King. Yeah. It's just like another one of those, like, which made me laugh because people say that about Andy Warhol's art. That's like, what is this? And then now we're watching that same thing as a Burger King commercial.
Right. It's so meta. Actually, I didn't watch the Super Bowl.
We didn't either.
I didn't even know who was playing until I asked Chelsea this morning.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was on in the background though, because Joel was watching it, and I was hearing, like, again, I was working, and then it would sort of enter my consciousness, and I would hear the commercials, and I was like, and I said to Joel, I said, I'm only paying half attention, but it sounds like all these commercials are trying really hard.
Yeah.
And he laughed and he said, yeah, they really are. But again, so that's like meta, right? You've got Andy Warhol eating a McDonald's hamburger or Burger King hamburger, and like, what the hell? Yeah. But again, go back to that idea that this is so complicated. It's like, I always think, like, back in the 80s, like, there was the uptown downtown thing, right? There was uptown art and there was downtown art. There were uptown, the downtown was cool, edgy, hip, groundbreaking, progressive, and then you had the uptown. This is just just labels that you put on them, which are more conventional and accepted. But soon as somebody from downtown, got a show at the Guggenheim, they were sellout. And you're going, really, like, so success is the measure of. So I think we have to be very careful about judging what's good and what's bad. We can have our own opinions and we have our right to them, and you can choose to support and buy. And there's a band who's really killing it, and you're saying, I need to, like, tell everybody about that. But to break through the noise, so the thing that you're talking about is breaking through the noise and discovery. Yeah. I mean, I've been in publishing for 30 years. Most of my favorite books are books that you would have never heard of. Now, is that the fault of the book? Is it the fault of you guys not being in the world? Is it the fault of me as a publisher or not getting it out? Like, so everybody wants to point a finger about why something didn't work. And you're going, discovery is hard. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of competition. So something breaking through takes a lot of things coming together at the same time.
Yeah, when you look at the science of it, it's like politically what's going on in the world, like what's the timing of news and, all of it.
Yes. Well, it's where people's attention is spent, right? Like, if people's attention, the political landscape, the publishing landscape for us shifts all the time according to what's going on in the world, right? So and we could either, and then you respond to it as a publisher. We definitely try to respond to it because we have a responsibility to do that. And also more is being produced in that subject, in that market.
Yeah.
But also you publish things that you love because, you think it's good. And we do a lot of that. We go, we think that this is really special. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if there's a place for this, but I'm going to try.
This is a great spot to transition into your book again because, well, first of all, thank you for sending me your book. I got it a few days ago, and with 3 kids, I didn't get a chance to finish it, but I definitely read through as much as I could. And there was a section where you have, like, the 7 rules of how to basically suck at something, and the stuff you're talking about now is, like, so fits into there. I would love for you to, like, kind of put it into the architecture of those rules. And the 2 that popped into my head was not comparing yourself to others, and also, like, doing what you love without expectation of gain. Those were 2 of the ones that popped in my head as you're talking now.
Yes. I'm actually going to try to find it in the book. Here it is. Your road rules to sucking at something. So I feel like this is just like it's a try to have a way to, like, feeling freer about things. But the not comparing yourself to others. So just what we were just talking about. I think we say, oh, I'm in a band, but that other band is more popular. I wrote a book but my book didn't sell as many copies as that other book. Or, I did a painting and it doesn't sell as much as blah, blah, blah. That again becomes transactional as opposed to just saying, I'm going to do the thing I love with full intention and attention. And I'm going to put it in the world. And I hope it brings someone joy, but if it's great, but I can't even hope for that, right? I'm just going to do it because I must. And the best of art is put in the world in that way. Now, there are people who try to game it, and somebody was explaining to me early on in my career, just saying, Daniel Steele writes those books because Daniel Steele loves those books. Mm-hmm. Daniel Steele doesn't write those books just to become whatever, I don't even know what she writes, but I guess they're kind of, melodrama romance books. She loves those people who write romance novels. And I know people who do that, and I would read them and go, oh my God, how come people read this? They're hugely popular. They're hugely popular. And you know what? The people who write them, they love them.
Yeah.
So you either are producing something that the whole world's going to love too, or you're Van Gogh and you're painting and nobody cares and you're going to die poor. And then, then you become one of the most famous, there are corollaries in every single, in every single artistic endeavor. So the thing is like, you can't compare yourself to others because that's meaningless. It doesn't have any meaning at all. You do it because you have to do it because you must, and because for the joy, and you have something to say and something to express. And then sort of that compare yourself to others is parallel to, do what you love without expectation of gain or reward. That's, I think, a really hard thing to do. And it's what I've learned through surfing, because if I surf and I go out there and say, I want to catch, the waves are good, I'm going to catch a lot of waves today, and I don't, and I can get myself caught in this cycle, instead of just being in the ocean and how beautiful and how happy I am and how blessed I am to be able to be there. And, I'm physically well so I can be there, and the weather is accommodating sort of, and there are waves that I might be able to get. And then if I just say the reward is going to be catching and riding a wave, which of course is part of the calculation. But if I get caught up in that, my session is not nearly as much fun as just going out there and saying, hey, if I catch a wave, that's a bonus, but you know what? I'm here. And it's like a whole mindset. And it's the same thing of like, when I talk to a lot of people about writing and publishing now, because since I'm on both sides of it, and I always, one of the first things I say is, if you are going to write and the first thing you think about is getting published, just stop writing right now. If your goal is to be published only, you're already thinking about publishing and you just haven't even honed the skills or gotten, wrote the book yet. I was like, it's not going to happen. You can't. Now, every writer wants to get published because that's the thing of wanting to be seen and acknowledged and admired. But when you write something, put it in the world, as many people are going to admire it, are going to hate it. So you have to get ready for that, right? Chelsea, from doing the blog, right? Like people have something to say. So the thing is like, you can't do it for the gain or reward. You have to do it. Now, by the way, when you do something for a living and it's transactional in the sense that I have to feed my family, again, I think that's a different metric. It's a different thing. I would also say, because I got into publishing not to make money, God knows, and somebody told me once, about 10 years in, and I was like, I can't believe I'm still not making any money. I'm working my ass off. I'm doing well. I'm not making any money. He said, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
You will make, if you stick, the money will come. I'm not going to get rich doing it, but the money will come. You will be fine. And the fact of the matter is, my friends and I who have stuck with publishing and are in it for 20 and 30 years, we can make a living doing it, and a decent living. And a lot of it is just sticking.
Oh, it reminds me of that, like the big magic metaphor where she always says, like, for the love of God, don't put the pressure of making money on your art, because it really does take away from the creative process. Yes, it does. So that's what I mean. The suck at something thing is like the thing that you do because it's beautiful to you. And it could be, it could apply to art. It could apply to a hobby, or it could apply to a sports thing. For me, surfing, it's surfing. But again, through the surfing, I feel like the surfing also helped. This is crazy. I think might not be crazy, but the surfing taught me how to write. Okay. Which is, who the hell does that? Right. Like that would not be
a connection that you would think to make. But by being so bad at surfing and having to do it in public, right? It's like I got so used to being humbled. I was humbled every moment. I am humbled every moment that I surf. And then I would go away and I would actually I would write about it. I mean, this is how the book happened. So you asked me about how the book happened. It's like, what would happen is that I asked myself the question is, how can I keep doing something I'm so bad at, but do it with so much joy? And I thought, well, maybe I'm learning something. Maybe there's something else besides what it looks like, because surfing's cool, except if I'm doing it. And then if I'm doing it, it's the opposite of cool, right? And it's weird. It's like, that's a hard thing to do, to get out there and not be cool. Like, it's hard, because you want to be seen as cool. It's like, no, not me. But then I realized, then I would write about it, but then it's the same thing with writing, right? You're writing when you put it in the world or you give it to somebody else to read. Most of the time it's going to suck, because writers suck at writing. They just do, until they write something that's good. Yeah. And that's, believe me, any writer, it's hard won. So what happened, I think it allowed me to go, so I can write something and I can put it in the world and it's okay if it's not great. Because being a publisher and editor, I thought if I write something, put it in the world, it's got to be great. I'm like, who's great? Like, forget it. I'm never going to get there.
Yeah.
So I just started writing and I allowed myself to write badly. And I finally forgave myself for writing badly. So I think that surfing actually also helped my writing.
Oh, I love that. Perfect metaphor. Yeah.
As you're saying that, I did like an internal that's like delicious, because like you had mentioned something that I related to very much, and like surfing is one of those activities that you can't really do in private. Even if you have a private instructor, you're still out there to be seen for all your flaws and wipeouts and your top falling off and whatever else is going on. Like, everyone's there to see you, unless you're there at like 4 a.m. And like, I think that's like something that I think a lot of creative people especially suck at, and not in a good way of sucking, but like, artists and writers, as you mentioned, we all suck. And I think the only reason that maybe I can make look something easy, as you said, although I don't think so. And the only reason that writers can make things look easy is because you don't see like the hours and hundreds of hours of painting over the same mistake over and over again, or deleting 20 paragraphs only to write them over to delete them again. Like, you're only seeing the finished product, but like creative people especially don't commit to sharing their work. Like, if they were writing their books or painting their pictures and doing so as though they were in the lineup, in a crowded lineup in Seaside or something, and everyone was watching them paint and write, leaving that wreckage behind is kind of like a necessary little nagging that is going to always haunt you to do better. And people that are too afraid to share their work never get the benefit of like having that little bit of embarrassment and that little bit of a reminder on what you have to improve upon.
And what happens too is that you can lie to yourself. If I'm in the lineup alone, never happens, but every once in a while, I can lie to myself that I'm a better surfer because there's nobody there to witness it.
Oh my God, do I have a good story for you?
Oh man,
Chelsea, these names have to remain. There's no names here. This is an anonymous story, but we had an extremely, extremely good friend who was my surfing buddy. And you'll relate to this as a surfer. We would surf every day, like literally every day when I was living in Belmar. And you know what it's like when you're surfing. You're at the lineup, your buddy catches a wave, you turn around, and all you see really is like the wave pass by and some spray in your face, and maybe you see your friend's head over the wave if it's small enough. And that's all you see. So for months, I'm talking months, maybe even more than a year or two, I'd have this one buddy that I would surf with. I love the guy. We'd always surf. And like, it wasn't until one day, maybe a year or more after surfing with him, that I was paddling in from a wave and I saw him catch a wave, and I look up and he's surfing on his knees. And I'm like, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, that's really funny. You probably like didn't pop up and you're being a goofball. Yeah. So then I was like, then I saw him doing it. Then I like was extra attentive and I saw him do it again. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on here? And then my spidey senses went off and I started paying more attention. And I'm like, holy shit, my surfing buddy does not know how to stand up on a surfboard.
Do you know what's funny though is we're talking about this book with this person in particular. He actually was someone that tried everything. which is interesting. So it's
he
like
was not
at the
afraid
time,
to suck at something.
at nothing.
Like he told us that
he
told us he spoke 6
It
languages.
was just the way he presented it was sometimes a little twisted.
He told us he was a Navy SEAL. What else did he tell us?
I don't know. We shouldn't.
And he wasn't.
No, it's super convincing, but
like pro skateboarder, but was actually teaching himself to skateboard while skating with Jay.
A certified
really
scuba diver,
things.
But he wasn't.
But I'm fascinated by him. We bring him up a lot because.
Did you call him on it?
Yes, finally, yes.
It's a long story. I'll tell you in private, but it's so fascinating that he was not at all afraid to suck at anything.
So confident,
and very convincing. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. He's not afraid to suck at things, but he was maybe making more of the skill that he had.
Because I think he was afraid of judgment of others still. So that was the thing.
But that's like he's hubris. So scared. There's a weird hubristic kind of flip side to this sucking at something. It's like the whole thing is like you have to really admit to it. So my thing with surfing is that I would tell people, this is really funny. I would tell people, people's like, oh yeah, you surf. People say, oh, you're a big surfer. It's like, no, I'm really bad at it. And they're like, oh, I said, I do it though. Yes. All you could say is that I surf. End of story. Yeah. There's nothing else around that you could add. There's no qualifier. And it wasn't until I literally posted or showed people a video of me surfing. And there's a story in the book where a colleague of mine comes up and she walks in my office and she said, so you really do suck at surfing? And I said, yeah, I wasn't kidding. And she was smiling. And I said, that makes you happy, doesn't it? She said, it kind of does, because I thought, isn't Karen cool? Like, she's got a house in Costa Rica and she surfs and she can do this and that. And I said, no, I'm really fucking bad at it. Yeah. And she said, that makes me happy. And I said, I'm glad I could help your day. And it was not mean. It was funny and it was honest. And I thought, you know what? It is not a humble brag. But by the way, if you talk to me about publishing or editing or cooking, I'm a really good cook. I'm really good at my job. There are things I'm really good at, and I'll tell you I'm good. I can.
Yeah, so it's not your personality just to say, "Oh, I suck at that." Like that's not.
It's not a humble brag. And by the way, I'm not a the perfectionist thing is a big lie. Let's just blow the lid off of that. Like perfectionism, when people say, oh, I can't do that because I'm a perfectionist. I'm like, oh, so the things you do perfectly well. Like that is the biggest cop-out, the biggest cop-out that there ever was. It's
totally.
Like, oh, don't talk, please, perfectionist.
It's like the one goal you'll never achieve. There was like an amazing Dali quote about that I just butchered horribly.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like letting yourself off the hook for not trying.
Right. Yeah. It's a form of self-sabotage.
Yeah, self-sabotage are also, it's like where self-sabotage meets grandiosity. Mm-hmm. It becomes, which of course is all part of the same problem. But I love that story of your friend. I mean, that's really, really fun. It's funny because, when that idea when somebody catches a wave in front of you and you can't really see the wait is for somebody to either hit the lip so you can see them do that, right, and go down again, but you can't see the sections, so I'm constantly, I'll catch a wave, and barely make it to the bottom. I mean, that'll happen to me a lot. So my thing is like, people, I'll paddle back out and say, did you catch it? And I'm like, nope. Nope. And a friend of mine finally said, did you at least make the drop? And I said, what happens when you make the drop, but then you just explode at the bottom of it? It's like, that's what, and the thing is, it's like, I'm not going to paint it to be better than it is. Why would I do that? That's just a lie to myself and a lie to everybody else. And it doesn't show forgiveness is the thing that you just aren't good at.
Yeah. Well, surfing is just one of those things that I remember with that whole not being able to see, like Jay and I were in Hawaii and I was still learning in my first 2 years or so of surfing. And I remember I disappeared behind a wave and he was just like, cool, everything's fine. She caught the wave. And I basically drowned and I had the board go straight into the ground and shoot and gave me a dead leg. I was done straight into my thigh. And he's catching the next 2 waves. He's like, good job, babe. You're doing great. And I'm just like, this is so fucked up. I'm
that
just going to.
Such a perfect, don't you wish you could have that filmed? And because it's a great metaphor in a way, right? And it's beautiful though. It's like, you're getting hammered and Jay wants to see you succeeding and then sees it as you succeeding. And there's something really wonderful about that. Right. And it's like, because here's the thing, we don't really know, right? You don't somebody will see me on a wave and then say, well, wait a minute, you don't suck at surfing. You could, you're on that wave, you're riding. It's like, it's a shoulder high, head high wave. You're riding that wave. It's like, yeah, I can surf. I'm not saying I can't. It's just that I don't do it well. But if somebody doesn't know how to look at it, they'll look at it and go, wow, that looks pretty. And this is what people say, it looks pretty good to me. I'm like, yeah, but you don't surf. So how would you know? Like, you don't know. But thank you. Thank you for the compliment. But actually, no. And that's all right too. So it's that thing of the intention. Again, I think it's just kindness to yourself, kindness to other people who are trying to do it, and the appreciation is like how hard things really are. And again, go back to painting, go back to music, go back to writing. I feel like anybody can pick up a brush, dip it in paint, and put color on a canvas. Anybody can pick up a guitar, strum a few chords, and make a little bit of music. Everybody can write an email or, a text to a friend. Turning that into something else is where it gets hard. So I think, and surfing is like everybody can enter the ocean with a surfboard, right? Yeah. And then you're going, yeah, that's true. And then you say, but to get to a proficiency and then to get to real talent, it's that, the Malcolm Gladwell 2,000 hours thing.
The proficiency comes, just like you were saying earlier, like you didn't know the first thing about accounting and you figure it out. And then what'd you know about publishing? Not so much. You figure it out. So if you put yourself out there and you're willing to suck, like I'm trying to teach myself piano and I'm horrible. Who cares, right? But I'm better than I was 3 months ago. So, it's like those little incremental steps that you take that really matters.
And the expectations that you can get to where you're going to get to. Listen, you could probably become a decent piano player. You just have to, if you just put in the time. People think that they're going to, and everything, I see this in writing. Again, the parallels, because I guess that's what I do. I write and surf, but people really think that they just try it once or twice and say, oh man, I don't think I'm going to get good at this. And I'm like, well, how would you know? Like, talk to me in 10 years.
Yeah.
And I say that about writing too. People go, I have a great idea for a book. And I'm going, okay, how often do you write? Where do you write? Like, what's context? How much do you read? And it's like, if you're not reading and writing every day and you think you're going to write, I go through this. I'm going through this with a writer right now, and I won't name who it is. Somebody who's at the top of her field in what she does. And she's written books. And I love her. And she's having a really hard time writing her book. I was like, yeah, because writing books are hard. It's hard. Yes. You can have written them before. You can be that smart, that accomplished, that articulate, that good of a storyteller. Writing a book, different thing. Yeah. Structure, narrative flow, writing what you intend to say is really hard.
Well, so how old are your kids now, Karen?
So they're 20 and 18. My boys are 20 and 18. I have two stepdaughters who are this week, 28 and 38.
So does this make you like such a pain in the ass as a mom? Like I picture my mom coming to me and being like with me being like, well, I'm just not going to do that. I just feel like it's a waste of time. And if her response was like, just suck at it. Just do it. You should be doing it. Like I could totally picture me wanting to just slap her.
Yeah. I just let them see me suck at things.
Lead by example.
So I just let them watch me. God knows they have watched me be bad at so many things that, I hope that my ease with it is better. I have a son, my youngest son is a brilliant writer. He's probably one of the best writers I know. And that's saying a lot considering what I do. He's that good. It's crazy how good he is. But he's very, very insecure about it, which is really interesting because he's better than me. He's better than my husband. We've been writing our whole lives. He's better than a lot of writers I publish, and he's only 18. And I was like, well, yeah, you're gonna have to work on it. And we do have this conversation, and it's very difficult. And I almost think that some part of him knows he's that good. And sometimes, think about it, sometimes knowing that you have that we can talk about innate talent and ability, and that's always controversial. But yeah, I am not an innate surfer. I'm just not. Some people are. Some people, you watch them get up and you're going, whoa, okay, you got that thing. Geo has that with writing, and I almost think that sometimes that might put more pressure on you than the thing of saying, I probably won't be any good at this, and I can try it, suck at it, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh wait, what if you start out really good, and then you have to? So then the secret is to be humble enough, have enough humility to be able to work on that great basis and get to be one of the best. And I think that's a different transaction, right? Or not to lie. I did the opposite. I was always gifted in languages, and that's the whole French thing. I was not that good in school, but language is something that just clicked with me, and I had a natural affinity for French. So I never studied it. So that by the time I got to grad school, my French, I was fluent, but my French sucked. And that was arrogant. Yeah. And I was really put in my place by it because I never worked at it because it came easily to me. And because I never worked at it, my writing, my syntax was not clean and good. And I had to, and that's another story, but it was basically my professor said, yeah, you're sort of brilliant in your thinking, you're fluent, but you're going to have to go back and start studying French language all over again to clean up your sloppy mistakes. And I was like, oh, forget it. But it was a great moment for me. And I thought, right, just because it comes easily to you does not mean that you're going to be necessarily good at it. You still have to work at it. And that was one of the great lessons of life too.
I think that that idea of flexing your muscles with your creativity or with your skill, even if you are someone that is great at something, or if you're perceived as someone who is great at something, that doesn't mean you should just stop pushing the boundaries of your comfort and your skill and your level of fluency. I feel like with my painting, I'm sure there's people that would say, oh, you can paint really well. It's a talent you have, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like I'm always pushing myself to a place of, okay, but I suck at this part of my painting. Or what if I push myself in this area that I have no comfort in? You know what I mean? I think that is also a really important lesson that you're touching upon.
But I think it's like sucking at whatever level you're at. I have I can't imagine, I look at your work and I see you paint, you paint live on stage. I mean, it just blows my mind to I don't even understand how that could be possible, right? But you can do it. So you kind of look at you. So yes, to me, you're just, you're awe-inspiring with your painting and your ability, but right? That there are things you need to work because you see things that I can't see because I'm not an expert. I mean, I have the anecdote in the book, and the Suck at Something book is about Baryshnikov. When I meet Mikhail Baryshnikov, who's, arguably one of the greatest ballet dancers of all time. And it's a funny story that I tell in the book, but at the end of it, the meeting with him, I say, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm going to take ballet lessons. And I was like, what? You're the greatest ballet dancer in the world.
Who's going to teach you?
I still take lessons every week. And that was just, again, wow, that was brought home to me. And I went, yes.
Which, by the way, I want to go back to me getting annoyed at the art gallery thing. It's not that I don't get totally annoyed anymore, but we did the Louvre and it took Jay 15 hours to get through the Louvre. But he can look, the cool thing is these paintings that are hundreds and hundreds of years old, because of the way, I guess, the materials they painted with, which I'm looking to Jay right now to be I don't know any of the technical shit that goes into what I'm about to say, but he can actually show me their mistakes, which is really cool because they paint over it. And after this many years, it wears away. So he'll look at the same paint, he'll look at a painting and then be like, but keep looking, do you see? And I can't see it. And then he'll show that there was a leg in a different location that they paint over and and then use a different, cool. It's so amazing. So when you actually see it through his eyes, you're like, oh my God, it opens up a whole nother, but to do that for 15 hours, I mean, my brain was
so
just
easy
to explode.
I'll tell you though, it's I think this is one of the things that I've brought to Chelsea's life. Reminds me of the story you were saying with the surf instructor, how patient he was and how into sharing his world. When I used to take Chelsea to museums or galleries when we first started dating, she would walk around, and I'm sure when we first started dating, she wanted to impress me. So she's like, oh, I love that piece or whatever. And she'd keep walking, and I would say, no, come back here. Why do you like that piece? What about it? And being forced to look at a painting or read a book and be like, okay, great, you like the book, but why? What specifically? Because that is what teaches you how to write or teaches you how to paint.
It's a psychological breakdown of yourself. Like, what is it that your expertise in your own head, which was very little at the time for me, is telling you? And for me, it was usually like it's close to a photograph I like, or it's very realist or whatever. And now it's pivoted a little bit. And the cool thing too with like art in general is like I could be like, oh, I love this, and Jay will be like, do you know that they had to make the paint out of like, it'd be like these crazy
squashed bugs or dirt?
This is in the 1400s. Like, do you know how that was created? And when you see the colors, you're like, oh my God, this just took on a whole nother meaning. So yeah, it's just using what you have at that time. And sometimes that might not be much. Like with art, it wasn't much for me. So it's just...
Going back to your book for a second. So when I was reading parts of your book, you were talking about how like pretty much no one's cool, right? Like even our curated, Instagrams, we may look cool, but guess what? We're all pretty fucked up. We're not cool. We're all kind of nerdy.
Fucked up. Hey.
I'm fucked up. Anyway, but you brought up this like awesome example of like, no one's really cool, but then you brought up Elon Musk like sipping a beer watching his like spaceship take off.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty fucking cool. Like,
yeah.
So some people maybe are cool.
Yeah. Well, you appear cool for a moment, right? But then think about how he screwed up by taking LSD and screwing up his entire board, and like, that was like, then he made the least cool major blunder that jeopardized his entire company. So like, is he cool or is he not cool?
He's cool.
So again, it's he's Elon Musk.
Well, it was just weed, for the record. I don't think he was tripping balls on Joe Rogan, but that would have been even cooler.
Like
I thought he was doing. Was he talking
he like
about
smoked
it?
a joint on Joe Rogan, and it like gave this big media scandal because, oh my God, he smoked a joint.
Oh, that's stupid. I mean, that's stupid. But I thought there was some disclosure about something that affected his stock. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Okay, so don't listen. So cut that out because I don't know what I'm talking about. I suck at remember media hits. But I think the idea is that like cool. I mean, there's an amazing book by this guy named Joel Dinerstein that is so worth reading, and I don't even know what it's called. It's like on American Cool, and what it does is it looks at jazz, starting from the 30s and 40s, American jazz, noir, and oh God, what's the other thing? And he synthesizes sort of what cool is. And what I say is that cool is basically a mask for vulnerability. And it according to Joel Dinerstein's sort of theory, that is true. So I think that idea is that we're cool, we want to be cool, but we're not cool, or what is cool and what is the draw. And then I have that diagram where I basically, I talk about it, but then I have this diagram where I basically say, if you start out wanting to be cool, it doesn't work, right? So my idea is that if you start wanting to be cool, it's a mask for vulnerability. If you hide vulnerability, it makes it very difficult to feel gratitude. And if you don't have gratitude, you can't be resilient. And if you're not resilient, you're not cool, right? But if you start out being vulnerable and accepting your vulnerability, if you say, I am vulnerable, then it creates a path. It allows you to be grateful and experience gratitude. And gratitude practice kind of builds resilience, right? Because being grateful for the things that are even difficult, and being resilient is cool. So I'm saying it's where you start. Starting with cool is going to never work out for you. If you start with something authentic, like, and something real, like vulnerability, which is really hard to do. It's much harder to start with vulnerability than it is to start with wanting to be cool. But it will lead you to being cool in the sense that what's cool? Resilience is cool. Like, being able to get that, have somebody write some shit about your blog and then go out and write another blog right afterwards and say, I'm okay with that. You can excoriate me. You can, talk to, I still have a voice. I'm going to write the next blog anyway. And I'm not going to listen to your negative, energy. And you go, that's cool. And that's resilience, right? But it's being open. You have to be open to
I think
being
generationally, it's going to be really interesting because somewhere between mine and Jay's generation, we've had to adjust to believing the world was run one way, and then social media took over halfway through our careers. So it's like an interesting, like, we had to pivot. Whereas kids these days coming up, they've had this their whole lives, like just judgment. Like that's just been right out there in the open. Like you can't post an Instagram photo without 60 opinions. So it's going to be an interesting, there'll probably be people that really thrive more than they may have. And then some that are just silenced early on, you know?
Oh gosh, that is a tough subject, man. Having teenagers who have grown up with it. I just had this talk with my 20-year-old and I said, you know, this living out loud that you guys do in where it really matters, like when you have breakdowns and you're heartbroken and you're arguing and then people post and spread shit about each other. It's really dangerous. It scares me. And I said, this living out loud there is something so deeply wrong with it. And he's like, I agree with you. You know, so some of these kids are, they back away from it. I think the healthier ones are really temper their social media connections and the way in which they do that. It's tough. It's a tough. Again, I don't. There have been tracts written about it. There are people who study it. So again, I feel like I only know it experientially, but it worries me a little bit. And it's not like, oh, the internet's bad because it's like that's ridiculous.
No, it's just seeing the development through the years. Like for my age group, like it was a big deal when someone would have like a blog and like tell journal entries about their life. Like I'd be like, oh my God, why is that all out there? And now it's like that's just everyone's Facebook on a daily basis.
Well, sharing, and then here's the thing, right? So you look at that and you say, okay, what's good and what's not good about sharing is amazing. Connecting to people and sharing is really important. And to the extent to which that happens, like if you feel like you're not alone, if you're part of if you're trans and you live in Arkansas and you feel like you're alone, you can get online and find a community of trans people, and that might save your life. Very much might save your life, right?
Or
that
move
is
out
real.
of Arkansas.
Yeah, just get the hell out of Arkansas.
Or move out of Arkansas. Well, but if you're 16, you can't really do that.
Sorry, fans in Arkansas.
Yeah.
No, but hey, listen, New Jersey sometimes isn't much better. Listen, I mean, I'm a Jersey girl, so I can say that. But I think that it's like everything. There's really good stuff that comes out of it, and there's really bad stuff that comes out of it. And that's like, I'm sure that was true of radio and TV and the telephone, so any new technology is going to bring good stuff and bad stuff. And you just hope that people, become educated enough and self-aware enough that they can take what's good out of it and not get wrapped up in it. This kind of putting, that's why I hope, I don't know if it'll happen with the suck at something thing. I want to use social media as the opposite. I want to use it for people to instead of posting how beautiful their lives are. I just want to, I want to invite people, and I'm building a website and creating, some social media around there, which is basically saying, tell us what you suck at.
Yeah.
Like, let's go right to the humility part and share that.
Yeah,
because I think that is a connector. The connector, I have got more love and kindness from the fact that I'm really bad in the water and I'm terrified. Listen, some people are mean to me too. Some people snake me in the water. They yell at me. They're mean because, like, what am I doing out there? But I also get the other thing, and I get so much love and kindness and people making space for me and helping me into waves and calling me into waves. And it is the best part of sucking is how generous and kind people can be, and then accepting that kindness. And that's huge to me. That's bigger than any of it. And you don't do that by saying, hey, I got this. I'm good. I'm an expert. I have a friend who's a really good surfer who gets really pissed off when somebody tries to help him in the water. He's really good, and he's been surfing himself out. He's like, why are you helping? Like, I don't need your help. And I thought, you know what, but that person's offering you something and, but you don't need it. I'm a writer and I'm a publisher, and I'll take all the help I can get, even in those things.
So I'm going to jump off on a quick question based on what you just said. So I'm someone that's, kind of sucky at writing. So, and yet I've been for the past 3 years, I've been like busting my butt and killing myself trying to finish a book. And I don't know why. It's just something that feels important to me. I think on some level I have expectations and hopes, but I also I realized through doing it that it's been a catharsis, and it's just something that I just want to do. And so based on what you were just saying about asking for help, besides reading and besides being, comfortable and fluent and all that, and can you give some practical tips for some other sucky writers out there on maybe finding your voice and knowing how to translate what you're trying to say into something that sounds authentic? Because I find that I read a lot, even though I grew up not reading at all. And I took the other extreme jump where I'm constantly reading or doing audiobooks. And it was hard, especially the first year of doing the book, of not sounding like an author that I love, even though I felt like I had something to say. And I know that's very, very similar with the visual arts, because most visual artists or aspiring visual artists start out copying other people's work, and that's cool. And some people never escape that, and that's really annoying. But
derivative, right?
Yeah,
derivative
give me some practical tips on something you don't suck at here.
Okay. So I would do a couple of things. I would go read. These are enormously helpful. So go read William Zinsser on writing, Stephen King on writing.
I love that book. Yeah.
Annie Lamott, Bird by Bird.
Read that too.
Reread them. Have you read William Zinsser?
I haven't read that one, but but Anne Lamott and Stephen King's book in particular.
Yeah.
And I actually listened to on audiobook, on repeat while I was painting, multiple times. So I'd be painting for a week or two at a time and listen to nothing but those books just to drill them in my head. And they're really helpful.
Yes. They're really helpful. And if you have their voice, and read, because you're writing nonfiction, so read Zinsser. I mean, he's
Zinsser, Z-I-N-Z-E-R?
Z-I-N-S-S-E-R, William Zinsser. And it's called, I think it's just called On Writing, or On Nonfiction Writing. I don't know. You'll see the book. It's a classic.
Cool.
It's just he's brutal. He's arrogant. He's insulting in some weird way on the page. I love it because it just kind of kicks your ass. That's good. You need to get your ass kicked when you're a writer. I would say join, if anybody can do this out there who wants to write, find a writing group in your community where you are sharing your work with other writers and able to have a safe space for criticism and to help each other out. Sometimes they're run by a writer, and you can, sometimes you have to pay some money to join or apply to join. And sometimes it could just be a writing group. But I would definitely don't do it in isolation, because you're never going to be able to see the fault lines in your own work. The problem with writing and struggling with it. So I hope if you're just going, buy these books and read them, find a writer's group if you can. Writing in isolation is hard because you can't judge your own work. But getting people to read your work and comment on it, the people like me, say, or people who do it for a living, this is what I do all day long. It's what people do. It's very it's a lot of time. Reading someone's full-length work and commenting on it, I cannot tell you how long it takes to edit a book.
Yeah.
It took me 8 hours yesterday of my Sunday to edit 120 pages of a writer who's one of the most popular writers in the world. And it took me 8 hours to edit these pages.
I'm going through it now with my book. It's it's torturous. With painting, I feel like it could be a similar process where I might paint the same 1-inch section for a month, but at least when I go into each session, I could just look at the entire picture, and I can't just just put a USB plug in my head and download the entire book in my head each time. So it's okay, I want to work in my book today and I have 3 kids. I have 2 hours. Well, guess what? An hour of that is going to be spent reading the entire thing all over again. And
yes.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's not even you could do that, but that's not, you can read it. I do this with my own work. It's I do it for a living. I edit and publish for a living, and I will read my own work and I will not see some obvious problems in it because you can't. So then the question becomes, who do you get? So you could always, find a freelance editor, but that costs money. Who's going to then take your work apart. But here's what I would also say: write and keep writing and keep writing and keep writing. And if you haven't done it for 10 years, don't even bother. Like, do 10 years. And I'm not kidding about this. It's like, think about it in surfing. When people go, this is the equivalent, and I'll do a surfing metaphor for writing. You take your first surf lesson in Costa Rica and you're riding some whitewater and you go, you know what? I think I'm ready for Mavericks. I mean, I know it's crazy, but maybe Mavericks on a small day. Like,
yeah, totally.
I could probably get there. I'll take a few more lessons and maybe I'll paddle out, or, and you would kind of look at that person and you'd go, like, yeah, you're a dead person, right? So it's not going to work. And not even Mavericks, but like, New Jersey on a head high day after a surfing lesson in Costa Rica. Writing is the same thing. It's like, you can write and then you can write, but writing it's at a certain level, and it's not that you don't have something to say, and it's not that you don't say it with your heart. Structure and narrative flow is unbelievably hard. You can make the drop, paddle into, catch the wave, make the drop. How do you then go back up the face and catch section after section and make it look beautiful, and then kick out the back with a flourish and a smile?
Yeah.
How long does it take to get there? A really long time. It's the same thing with writing. So I would say to people writing, you just have to keep doing it. If you keep doing it, you're going to get better. You are going to get better. You have to do it and 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 do it, and get help doing it, and not have an end game in mind. Forget publishing.
Yeah.
Just
making
write.
Jay feel better about the last 3.5 years of his life.
What's that?
So you're making Jay feel better about the last 3.5 years, because he always says it's taking too long, but he needed the process.
No. You're on target, and also don't expect to make money out of it. Sorry, writers out there who want to make a living writing. Like, don't. Some people do. There are the percentage of people who make their living writing are like writing creatively. I don't mean technically or for hire. Writing for hire is a different thing.
I feel like my book started out as an idea to make a couple extra bucks, because we do have this published friend who is the one Chelsea mentioned before, that sort of like hacks the system and finds topics that are trending and
makes it to the top of the charts every time with these books.
We were like really struggling financially, to be honest, and I was like, you know what, if I do a quick artsy book on something I know, maybe I'll make a few bucks. And what I found was, even though obviously there's a part of me that hopes I make a couple bucks on it, the idea of just putting something out there that I'm proud of, that can be like a legacy, that's so much more important. And I'm wondering if people listening to us all talk, if they have something that they want to do, something they know they suck at, they want to do it, but they're like, why should I prioritize being an opera singer or whatever it might be when I have so much else going on in my life? Like, what is there any advice from your book or from your life you can give on why the fuck people should prioritize something that they're going to get nothing from?
Well, that is the best question of all. I think that is the big kahuna question for this philosophy that I have. And so the question is prioritizing, right? So prioritizing means putting it before everything else. And I don't know. I mean, the only thing I put before everything else is my family, not my job, not my surfing, not my writing, nothing, just my family, right? That's the only priority I have. Then I have things like I have to do work besides, that's transactional because I have to be able to support my family. I need health insurance, blah, blah, blah. But it's the prioritizing is like, it's prioritizing joy is really what it is. And then the question becomes, how do you find joy in something you won't be good at? And then you have to ask the question, what does being good at it mean? What does that mean? And then you realize it's your ego. It's your noisy ego. So if you make it, so one of the rules in the book, I say, if you don't make it transactional, if it's transactional, forget it. Forget it. Like if I wanted to make money surfing, right? Like, can you imagine me? I love surfing as much as I love doing anything else. I probably more, besides being with my family, I love surfing more than anything else. Can you imagine the frustration that I would get if I decided I wanted to make money surfing? I mean, I've written a book about surfing, so there's a weird thing that happened that it wound up happening, but not in the way that you think it would happen. I did it because it's the process. The process, it's like a meditation. It's why meditate if it's not going to, meditating is a really good metaphor actually, because it's a really hard, it seems easy and it's a really hard thing to do well.
Yeah.
And you got to go, why? Well, and people say, well, why bother? Yoga looks really easy. It's pretty. You kind of move slowly, blah, blah. Like, go take a kick-ass yoga class. It's hard. It's really hard.
Hard as shit.
And it's hard as shit. Exactly. And you think, well, why do it? So why do anything if it's harder? Well, because you hope that the process and the learning brings you joy.
Yeah.
It brings you focus. It brings you calm. It brings you humility. It brings you resilience. It brings you, what I say, the subtitle is, the unexpected joy of wiping out, and what it can teach us about patience, resilience, and the stuff that really matters. If you're getting paid for it or you're getting kudos for it, your bank account and your ego are sated. And those are two things. Listen, we're human. We all need bank accounts, and our egos are there whether we like them or not. We can choose whether our egos are going to drive us in everything we do. I don't know about you, but like when I go out and I surf and I suck at it and people are seeing me do it and I have to suspend my ego, I am happier than I am doing anything else. And it's because I don't put the pressure on myself for the reward. I don't put the pressure on myself for the accolades. I don't put the pressure on myself to get a bonus or to get paid. I kind of let go of all of that. And holy smokes, when you let go of that stuff, what you open your heart to is that flow and that joy. It's counterintuitive, but it works. And a lot of it is just suspending your ego and allowing self-compassion and resilience to sort of like all these other things to take it. And then, by the way, what happens, and I really do believe this, I believe by allowing yourself to suck at something, just to put it, sort of plainly, it teaches you all, and this is what I really believe. I believe that sucking at surfing made me a better editor, made me a better publisher. It made me a better writer. It made me, I hope, a better parent. So all the things that actually really matter, like being a parent matters more than anything. Making my living matters a lot because I have to, take care of my family. I think the willingness to not expect a reward and to pay attention to the process has made me better at the things that I need to be good at.
Yeah, I think it's also about maybe redefining what the reward is. And you have a quote. Yeah. You have a quote from your book that I jotted down when I was reading it because it was one of those delicious moments. Like you said, what would happen if we put the need for stroking and reward behind us just for a bit?
Yeah.
And so I feel like what you're saying now is almost like we're just redefining it. We're not putting it behind us. We're actually saying the reward is the journey. And like when you were talking about surfing, like I first related to there's some of my best moments of surfing were actually in the car with my buddies, driving to the break, wondering what it's going to be like, busting out the surf wax, putting it on the board, that smell, paddling out. And a lot of times those sessions were some of my best, even though I only caught one or two waves maybe. And then I related it to painting. And like when I'm painting, sometimes the act of mixing the color on the palette feels so magical and so intense to the point where like there's been times I was painting a sky, and as I was mixing the color on the palette, it was as though the sky manifested and shot light through the palette, and I just saw it. Like I couldn't have made a mistake if I tried, because it was like I was scooping up a blob of sky. Like I could not have messed it up, and like those moments are more important than the finished product.
Yes. I just got goosebumps with that. That's a beautiful, beautiful image of you mixing the paints. So yes, process. I mean, that's also, everybody said this too, like the journey, the process, that is the point. Everything else is something else. I mean, you have to listen, the process of, having a family and raising kids, like, this, like there's some hard, I don't feel like there's anything better in the whole universe than, having kids and raising kids, and the great privilege that bestows, and how important it is. But talk about getting your ass kicked. You know what I mean? Like, it gets hard. And sometimes you kind of go, I don't know what to do. Like, I have every good intention. I love my children. I want what's best for them. I want to protect them, blah, blah. We're in this situation. I don't know what the right thing to do is. And instead of beating yourself up and going, oh my God, it must mean I'm a bad parent. I don't know. There are things you kind of go, yeah, you don't get to know what to do. You don't get to know. It's hard.
It's part of the process.
You have to, you have to make the decision that you can make in the moment. You look for help, you look for advice, whatever that is. Does that mean that it's not worth doing? It means that you accept what's difficult. I mean, it's true when you get sick, if heaven forbid someone gets sick or gets an illness or has an accident or, all those things, like, all of a sudden you're stopped in your tracks and you think, well, do I just stop now because things are going to suck? Or you kind of go, okay, it's like embracing that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you go, all right, I'm going to put this on. So that's why sucking at something. So you're saying it's a different kind of reward. That's another, I don't talk about it in that way, but that's a good framing of it too. It's a good way of understanding it, is that the reward is something else.
Yeah.
Rather than what we've come to, rather than ego stroking and transactions.
So
it's something deeper.
Somehow we blew through an hour and 45 minutes together, which is like crazy. This is amazing.
I know. I feel like we could probably spend a weekend.
I know. We
really need to. You need to cook for us since you just bragged about that.
Yeah.
I'm so good. And by the way, if you guys are in Brick now. I mean, seriously, like we cook at home. Like, I'm going to be down at the beach next Saturday. If you guys want me to cook for you and the family, why don't you just come over next Saturday night?
Are you good at vegan food?
Can you handle vegan food?
We can do anything. Yeah.
Right. We might be away next weekend, but we'll try a different weekend. So
okay.
I have
take you up on that,
yeah, we will. I have two last questions for you.
You just need to show up. I mean, bring the kids. And by the way, the house, I mean, it's hysterical because, we moved it to the house when the kids were 2 and 4. Yeah. And every single thing that they had when they were 2 is still in the house.
Oh, our kids will lose it.
When kids come over, we just say, we open this door. There's a door.
Amazing.
I mean, it's just like literally everything spills out of the door. And so the toys all come out. We have grandkids and stuff. So like the house is kid friendly. So people bring kids and just play.
We're going to take you up on that. Trust me. We'll post on social media the pictures of us playing in your playroom.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so I have two last questions.
And you don't have to do anything. You just have to drive over. I mean, we've got everything there. So like, we'll just that's what we do. Saturdays are basically our house in Seaside Park on Saturdays is almost like a party every weekend. I mean, it's funny. The past, for extenuating circumstances I won't go into now, we've had a rough 6 months. But prior to that's what we do. I mean, It's just like everybody knows. It's like, but if come over and we will cook for you and hang with the kids, and it will be so much fun. It'll be so good.
Well, so I have one last question I ask everyone, but before that, we'll do around the table here. I actually want to hear what everyone's reading. So, what are you reading right now for enjoyment?
What am I reading right now? I'm reading, oh God, I read so many things at the same time. I'm reading poetry for the first time with any seriousness. And because Mary Oliver just died, I'm reading Mary Oliver's poetry.
I fell into a Mary Oliver hole too.
So good. It's so good. It just makes me want to weep. I'm rereading one of my favorite books called Life Work by Donald Hall. Actually, this is all connected to what we're talking about. Donald Hall is a poet as well and an essayist, and his grandfather was a farmer, and he talks about work. What is work? And it's a prose, it's an extended essay, basically. It is one of my favorite books. I read it when it was really influential to me when I was in my 20s, and I talk about it, think about it a lot, but I'm finally 30 years later picking it up and rereading it, and it's just as powerful. So I'm reading that again. I just read Tessa Hadley's new book. I'm going to forget the name of it. Her new novel. I'll find it for
the show notes. We'll put it in there.
It's just out, and it's just mind-blowingly good. So I'm reading Lucretius because I'm a little bit obsessed with Lucretius.
It's a very well-rounded lineup we got going on there.
So those are the books that are concurrent right now. So I pick them up depending on where I am and what I'm in the mood for. And then I've always got a Surfer's Journal next to me because at the end of the day, I just want to read Surfer's Journal.
Yeah. So Jay, what do you have on deck?
So I was just pulling up my Audible list. So I'm more of an audiobook guy lately, especially since having kids, but I still count that as reading. And
it is. It's very much reading. That you don't have to excuse it. It is reading. We love.
I feel like I'm kind of cheating when I say that.
No, you're not. You're not at all. Actually, what it does is it's actually been really good for people because it allows the in podcasts. The popularity of podcasts has actually changed the market for audiobooks.
I bet.
Yeah.
So what are you listening to? What are you reading?
So currently I'm reading 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, which is the third book by Yuval Noah Harari. And I found his so far, I'll give you my review, that the first two books I find more interesting. And this current one is definitely interesting, but I almost feel like he's milking some of the material from the first two, which the first two are 100% must reads. Also, so when I'm painting, I'm usually listening to either music of some sort or a podcast or an audiobook. And one of the other audiobooks I've been getting lost in while I'm painting is A History of Western Philosophy by Bertrand Russell, which is super.
Oh God,
it's awesome.
So much fun.
Yeah, it's it's 33 hour, actually almost 34-hour book, and I just find it super, super fascinating.
Yeah, he's cool. Bertrand Russell's, he's just cool. That guy's cool.
Well, it's funny because Jay's reading that one, and then I'm finally diving into the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller.
Oh, the Madeline Miller, yeah.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it's two opposite sides of the spectrum, but we're both in the same genre in a way right now. So it's been a funny dinner time conversation.
Have you read Circe yet?
No, so that's next. I downloaded them both at the same time, so that's my next one.
And Circe's good. I mean, I love those two books. My sons and I love Madeline Miller, and Song
I've
of
heard
Achilles
Circe is better, so I'm excited. I'm glad I started with this one, and then
it's funny. People toggle back and forth. So some people think Song of Achilles is better. Some people think Circe is better. Circe is, it's the feminine. It deals a lot with the feminine, where Achilles is dealing with a lot of masculinity.
Oh, masculinity, That's very interesting.
So she really went. You'll see. So I think that they're really good. They're really good to read. Back to back.
Okay. All right. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm almost done the Song of Achilles, so then I'll be on to that.
It's fun. Yeah, she's so good.
Then my last question that I ask everyone is...
This is a deep one. Watch out.
Get ready. So if we had to drop you back in your childhood kitchen, so is that Jersey? What is the first thing you think of?
The kitchen?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Probably Sunday gravy, because I'm Italian and my family's only Italian all the way back. And on Sundays, my mother would get up and start making what we call gravy, which is, tomato sauce, but with all the meat and the sausage and the meatballs and the brajol and everything. And, that smell and that, I still make it. I make it the way she made it. Yeah. I don't make it every Sunday, but I'll make it once a year, because it's a lot of meat and it's very intense. But we would go to church on Sunday mornings, and I'd come home and the house would smell like gravy. And so that was a very, I don't even know what to say. It's just, it's what Jersey. Immediately comes to mind. It's stuck. It's my Proustian. My Proustian smell would definitely be the smell of
awesome.
Gravy.
Yeah, I grew up Dutch, and I remember the first friend I had that was Italian that I had a sleepover and experienced that on a Sunday morning. I was in total shock. That, and then that you guys eat your salad last. I didn't understand.
We did it last night. I did that last night.
So
we
funny.
had a meal and the salad came at the end. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I'm not even sure.
It's so Italian. I don't know. It's just really funny. Awesome. Well, so
before we wrap up, I think we have to give a little shout out of love to our mutual friend that we both love that brought us together, Dr. Eric Goodman. What's up, Eric?
Oh, yes.
Like
Hey,
episode
Eric.
number 4 or something.
Yeah,
like
we
that.
had Eric on, and according to him, he sucked at a lot of things. Like he dropped out of, or actually failed out of chiropractic, and took him a while to finish. And his story is a great one of how he overcame so many things. But we couldn't finish our interview with you without giving some love to Eric.
Yeah, and by the way, I love that. I listened to it. It was like visiting, just hearing the three of you on the podcast was just it was just wonderful. And I learned, I know Eric for 10 years, and I feel like he's like my grown up son. But I learned things about him and his journey that I didn't know before. So it was really wonderful on so many levels. It was like visiting with the three of you. So I really loved it. So thank you for that.
Well, thank
you.
So Karen, where can people find you if someone wants to email you directly?
Just on my website, it's krinaldi.com. So that's my essays are there, links to my book are there. I try to keep it updated. So yeah, I think just my website's good.
And which social media are you more active on if people want to stalk you?
Probably Instagram is I'm trying to connect with Facebook and Instagram for Suck at Something. So I have Suck at Something on Instagram, and I also have Rinaldi Wave. And yeah, you can find me. You can definitely find me there. Rinaldi Wave or Suck at Something.
And the book, It's Great to Suck at Something: The Unexpected Joy of Wiping Out and What It Can Teach Us About Patience, Resilience, and the Stuff That Really Matters. I'm fortunate enough to have a fancy pre-public copy, whatever the heck the fancy name for that is, and I'm thankful for that.
Bound Galley. It's called the Bound Galley.
Yeah, so I have a Bound Galley right in front of me. I only got it a few days ago, but I'm really excited to finish it. It's really, really great so far. I love all the little illustrations you have and charts are really fun to break it up, and the structure that you chose I love with the different lessons and takeaways at the beginning. When's it gonna hit shelves?
So it's being published May 7th.
Okay.
So we'll have finished books in April, and it'll be officially published on May 7th.
So exciting.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this, Karen. This was amazing.
Oh, thanks, Jay and Chelsea. It's so much fun to talk to you guys. And you're coming over for dinner.
All right, we're in.
I want some vegan gravy.
Vegan gravy, yeah.
You know what? I'll figure it out. There's a way to do it. I know there's a way to do it.
All right, Karen. Love you a lot. Thank you.
All right. Love you too. Okay, guys. I'll see you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, be well. Bye.
Suck at something.
Holy moly, that was good. And she was she really didn't sugarcoat it, did she?
No, that's not Karen's style. This was one of my favorite episodes. I love these topics. These nerdy / creative.
I don't think it's nerdy at all. You always like to call things nerdy just because they're about writing.
It's one of my things I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to
if you have to write
self-loathe.
or read, it's nerdy.
It's like a cute term. I'm not saying it in a bad way. It's not like Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, but Karen's the opposite of nerdy.
Academic. I don't know. Intellectual. What's a better word?
I don't know. Deep.
I like these deep topics.
But I like hearing the, no, you're going to have to write for another 10 years before you're good at it.
Don't you think there's some level of self-nerdifying when you say you suck at something? That's kind of well,
that's a different topic. You were saying,
the opposite
I like
of nerd?
These nerdy topics about writing.
So what would be the opposite of nerd? You're
cool.
Cool. So, yeah. So if you're saying you suck at something, you're saying, hey, I'm not cool, and I'm cool with that, and that's cool. So being a nerd equals cool.
This is going to go on forever. Literally forever.
I really loved it, though. It was great to, it was cool to see how she articulated the different lessons in her book. I've had a chance to go through some of the chapters and pull some really great things out of it. And I think surfing is obviously something that's really special to her, and for her to use that as an analogy just makes a ton of sense because, like she said, everyone sucks at surfing, and I guess golf is one of them that I suck at.
My dad always says golf is impossible to be good at. Everyone sucks at golf.
Yeah. Who would want to be good at golf? Not me.
Well, a lot of people.
A
tremendously
I'm sure
large
it's fun.
amount of people.
It's my problem. I have a problem with golf, and it's no one else's thing.
It's true.
It's just my thing.
Yeah.
To me, it seems weird. I know the stuff I do seems totally weird to others.
People also do admittedly say golf is pretty boring, but they just like it anyway.
So her book came out this week. You guys should definitely check it out. It's called It's Great to Suck at Something by Karen Rinaldi, and the subtitle is The Unexpected Joy of Wiping Out and What It Can Teach Us About Patience, Resilience, and the Stuff That Really Matters. We'll have a link in the show notes on shiftingperceptionspodcast.com. So, guys, definitely check the book out, and we will leave you on this note. On page 161 of Karen's book, is Rocco's Scary Wave story, wave number 6. So there's 3 rules that you can take with you the rest of your day. Rule number 6, do no harm to others in what you suck at. Good lesson. Lesson number 6, you can't love away someone's pain. And the benefit of this is, benefit number 6, you become less of an asshole. And there you go. We wish you guys a great day. Love you, Karen. And let us know what you guys think about this. Connect with us on social media. Click subscribe. Leave us a review. And we'll catch you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening, guys. We appreciate you. If you like what we're doing, could we ask you to go to iTunes and leave us a nice review and rating? It really helps us and helps other people to know that we're providing a good podcast for you. If you'd like to find us on social media, you can find us at Shifting Perceptions Podcast. You can find my artwork at jalders.com or me on social media at jalders. You can find my beautiful wife, Chelsea, on ommamasdoulas.com or on social media at ommamasdoulas. And if you'd like to join our newsletter or find episodes online with show notes, you can go to shiftingperceptionspodcast.com. Until next week, talk to you then. See you guys. Thanks so much.